One of the most important operations you can perform on your Windows Server 2003 machines is to ensure that all the important data and system state configuration information has been backed up properly. So that's what we're going to do in this exercise. We'll begin by clicking on Start, going to Programs, Accessories, System Tools, and then clicking on the backup icon. Another way to launch this utility is to click on Start, Run, and then type nt-backup, which is basically the command that will run this executable. When you first run the backup utility, you'll be presented with the backup or restore wizard, and you can choose to always use the wizard mode. For example, if you all generally are going to perform common operations, or you can go to the advanced mode. For the sake of this exercise, I'm going to go ahead and click on the advanced mode link so we can just see the user interface there. Within the backup utility, there are several tasks that you can perform. For example, there's backup, restore and manage media, and schedule jobs. And we'll take a look at these later throughout the text of the chapter and also in a following exercise. But for the sake of this exercise, let's go ahead and use the backup wizard. To begin the backup wizard, I'll click Next. The first decision that I'll need to make is to decide what to back up. You'll notice that there are three options on this step. The first option is to back up everything on this computer, and that means basically all of the files and folders that are attached to local hard disks. So this can be a large volume of information for most server systems. The second option is to back up selected files, drives, or network data. So for example, I can choose to back up a network share that I have access to, or I can choose to back up a specific volume or just specific files and folders. Finally, the third option, which we're going to choose for this exercise, is to only back up the system state data. So let's choose that option and click Next. Next, you'll be prompted for a place to save the backup, and this will default to the last location that I used. So I'm going to choose to store the backup file in my e:\data folder, and I've given it a name, test backup-system state. So I know that this backup file will contain system state information. Click Next to continue. You'll notice that very quickly we've completed the basic information that's required to create a system state backup. However, there are other options which we can access by clicking the Advanced button. Let's take a look at those in this exercise. The first option is to be able to choose the type of backup that I want to perform. Now the default backup is a normal backup, which basically backs up the selected files and marks them as being backed up. Normal backups are the basis for other types of backup schemes that involve copy operations, incremental backups, differential backups, and also daily backups. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and leave the option as normal and click Next to continue. On the How to Backup step, there's several options. I can choose to verify the data after the backup is complete, and basically what this does is it compares the data after it's been written to media, for example, either tape or hard disk, and make sure that it's the same as what's been stored in the backup file. So in this case, I'm going to choose to verify the data after backup. Although in the real world, you're probably not going to do this that often when you're saving backups to the hard disk. There are also other options, which in this case are grayed out. One option is to use hardware compression, and this is something that is possible if you're using, for example, a tape backup unit that actually supports hardware level compression. And the third option here, which is also grayed out, is to disable volume shadow copy. And so you might want to do this if you don't want to use the shadow copy functionality. It can slightly increase performance. However, in this case, since we're recording the system state information, we don't have the option to disable volume shadow copy. I'll click Next to continue. Now I can choose whether I want to append the backup that I'm creating now to a backup file if one already exists. And you'll notice that you'll remember that I created an e:\data/backup.bkf file. So if the file already exists, I can append a new backup set to it, or I can replace the existing backups. In this case, I'll choose to just go ahead and replace the existing backups. I'll click Next to continue. Now I can choose to schedule this backup operation, or I can choose to have it run immediately after I finish this wizard. The default option is to perform the backup immediately, so the selection is now. However, for the sake of this exercise, we're going to go ahead and schedule this backup to occur at a time in the future. So we'll choose the later option, and then we'll provide a name for the actual job schedule. So we'll call it Single System State Backup. To specify the scheduling options, I'll click the Set Schedule button. And here you'll notice there's several options for being able to configure the scheduled task time. So I can choose to have it run once, which we'll ultimately end up choosing, but let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other options. Other selections are daily, weekly, monthly, at system startup, at logon, or when idle. So let's go ahead and look at some of the options for a daily backup. Notice that I can have the task run at a certain time every certain number of days. So for example, if I want to run a backup every 2 days at a certain time, I can choose this option. You can also choose weekly, which as you'd expect lets me specify which days the backup will run on, and again the time. Or I can choose monthly, which tells me that I want to run it on a certain day of the month at a certain time. So this is useful if you want to do monthly backups for archival purposes. I'll go ahead and switch back to once, and we'll look at one more option here. You can show multiple schedules, and this is useful, for example, if you have different types of backup jobs, or if you have one backup job that you want to run at various times. For example, I might want to run a full backup operation on a Sunday afternoon, but I also want to run it late on the evenings on Monday through Friday. So in that case, I'd actually have to create 2 separate schedules in order to accommodate that. We'll go ahead and choose one of the simplest options. So I'll go ahead and choose to show a single schedule, and we'll schedule the task for once. I'll set the start time to about an hour from now, and I'll click the OK button to save the schedule. Once I've defined the schedule, I can click Next to continue. Here I'll be prompted for logon information for the user under which this backup job should run. This is an important setting because unlike running a backup now, the backup won't run under the user process that I'm currently logged onto on the machine. So for example, I could schedule a backup operation but then log off the computer. So Windows Server 2003 needs to know which user account should be used to run the backup. In this case, I'll just go ahead and enter in the username and password from the administrator account on my domain and click the OK button. The final step, which shows you completing the backup wizard, provides a summary of the options that we've chosen so far. So notice that we're going to create a file-based backup, and the backup will include system state information. It's actually scheduled to complete at a certain time in the future. So to finish and schedule the backup, I'll click the Finish button. If I had chosen not to schedule the backup, what would happen is when I click the Finish button, the backup process would begin immediately. So go ahead and click Finish. Okay, now we're back to the main advanced mode of the backup utility, which is pretty much right back where we started. Let's take a look at some information about the Scheduled Jobs tab. So you'll notice that here, specified for July 8th, you'll notice that there's an icon and the name of the job that we've scheduled. So this scheduled task shows that this backup job will be running on July 8th, which is later today. When I click on it, I can actually see more information about it. For example, I can see the details of the schedule and how often the backup job will be performed. I can also click on Backup Details, which provides me a text description of the options that I've chosen for the backup itself. I'll go ahead and click OK when I'm done looking at the backup job options. So as you can see, the Windows Backup utility provides several easy ways for you to specify that you want to back up system state information, and then also to schedule that backup job so that it occurs sometime in the future or according to some schedule that you specify. Using Windows Backup, you're really able to quickly and easily set up data protection for your Windows Server 2003 machines.